We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
We tried playing that Candyman game. I don't think you were here when we tried playing it. It's garbage. It's so bad. It's like definitely a promotional item that they made for the movie. Yeah, it sucks. Welcome to Mostly Horror.
Mostly. You started that so abruptly.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
It felt right.
And that's fine.
Chelsea can start this episode with me talking about how the board game for Candyman 2, I think they made a promotional board game for Candyman 2. Yeah.
I remember you talking about it because that's what you got. You bought that from John, right? From John Squires. Yeah. That's what it was. It took my brain a second to connect that. I wasn't there to play it.
Not a good game. But that's okay.
Still cool to have.
Yeah, definitely a cool thing to have. Tried playing it. Wasn't great. That's not what we're talking about today on the podcast. Today, we are taking it back to the what era? What era is it?
Paleolithic.
Paleolithic era with director Andrew Cumming. New film Out of Darkness, out February 9th. I feel like we're in, it's just the beginning of February, and we're already on pace to have some good this is Studio Canal. I'll call it indie. We have some good indie horror flicks already this year. And I don't know if I'm making more of an effort to watch more, but we saw The Seeding, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And Out of Darkness is another very different type of horror film, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm my hopes are pretty high. I felt like last year was like, it was fine. There were some hits, there were some misses, but I'm feeling pretty good about this year.
Yeah, same. Especially in the indie sphere as well. I definitely know what you mean. So fingers crossed, man. I hope that our end of the year review this time is just like, it's difficult because there's so many great movies. We'll just have to see.
And I think to continue talking about that, let's talk about some things that you probably already know.
I'm sure you already knew that.
You only tell me stuff I already know.
You already know what I'm going to tell you.
The first one, we're recording this in the evening on February 2nd, and it's just been announced that the film that has been teased for quite some time now by Neon Longlegs, next film by Osgood Perkins, director of The Black Coat's Daughter, Gretel and Hansel and More, is officially coming out July 12th. This film stars, as we've said a number of times, Nicolas Cage, Micah Monroe. The marketing has been wonderful. They put out a teaser trailer for it. I am not going to watch it. I think I've gotten enough excitement from the marketing. July will be here before we know it, I feel like, but still very excited for this film.
Same. Yeah, I saw that they did the teaser. I was like, I'm absolutely not going to watch it. But I was thinking, like, with all the cool marketing they've been doing, I'm like, am I going to miss out on the experience? Is this the type of thing where by not participating in all the marketing, I'm going to miss something or miss part of, like, the buildup? But then I just decided no.
I just don't want to see anything it's like I didn't, and I actually did. Someone posted a snippet of a conversation that they had with Nick Cage months ago. It was like an interview, and he asks him like, "Oh, you're in the new Oz Perkins movie," and he says a little bit about it, and I was like, "Fuck!" I read like 2 sentences. I was like, "There's 2 more sentences that I wanted to know," but it's fine. I'm sure I'll still enjoy it. This is definitely, from what I've read, it's going to be a very heavy psychological thriller sort of film. But I'm sure it's rated R for grisly images and that sort of stuff.
Perfect.
So should be right up our alley. Speaking of things, this one's going to be a little bit more under the radar. Speaking of things that are coming out soon, I don't know if you saw the trailer for Frogman.
It's okay. I was looking at images from it earlier, but I didn't fully commit to watching it. I'm surprised that you're bringing it up. So now
so here's the thing. When I read the article, I was like, this is really interesting. For those who may not know, so Rumorg put out an exclusive about this new upcoming found footage film called Frogman. I not only am I watching more films this year, but I really want to make an effort to watch more found footage because I feel like that affects me more than most horror. Like, and
Sure,
I love
yeah.
found footage.
Totally. Fair.
But this film is called Frogman, and it's going to be going to VOD on March 8th. But before it goes to VOD, and this is, something you probably already know because this is going to happen by the time the episode comes out, it's being released on VHS on February 9th.
Is that
So
what? Okay, because I saw
they're
the
doing
artwork.
that first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
that is fantastic. Did you see? You looked at the artwork then, yeah? Because that's the thing that caught my attention was
Yes.
the illustration on the cover.
Yes. The Croaks are no hoax.
Yeah, the Croaks are no hoax.
Yeah.
The art is so cool. I don't know what it is about it. It feels very like I'm trying to think of it's like a print making type of art that it's also like heavily inspired over the garden wall. Like
yeah, it looks like this Pan's Labyrinth. 1 second.
Yeah, that's fair. There's a name. There's totally a name that all of these posters and things are taking. It
reminded me of this
from
Pan's Labyrinth cover, kind of, just like the framing and stuff.
Very, very fair. Yeah, I'm excited for that aspect of it, but it definitely. Other than that, I'm curious what you're going to think of it because it looks more on like the goofier side.
Yeah, I want to. There's more to life than just regular movies. I got to watch more different movies,
That's like, what I'm saying.
And it's just way overdue. But speaking of other horror films about animals, Sean, you hear about Night Bitch?
Dude, I did hear about Night Bitch. We got Amy Adams. You say what you got to say, but then I have some thoughts. What about Night Bitch?
Give me your thoughts. You tell the people about Night Bitch.
So it's funny because
interesting name for a movie.
100%. It's a film. It has Amy Adams. It's a horror film, and it's about motherhood, is what it seems to be about. It's like a violent, a woman. I'm assuming like a new mother, finding out some new things about herself, and that she may be turning into a canine. Is the little bit that I read. Did you read that much about it?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that to me is that it reminds me of something we were just talking about recently
in another episode,
which is Big Bad, Chandler Baker's Big Bad, which is being made into a feature by Christopher Landon. We were just talking about this last week, guys. So it's a very similar premise, and I thought that was interesting, but I guess it's based off of a novel.
Rachel Yoder is the author of the novel.
There you go. So it just seems like an interesting coincidence. It's not anybody ripping anybody off. Obviously, they might have two completely different moods and tones and things that they're trying to say. But yeah, women, mothers. I guess I'm also assuming that this is a werewolf thing. I guess she could be just some sort of like, it could be another kind of canine beast transformation.
Yeah, I almost hope it's not a werewolf thing. I hope it's just a dog. Like, I hope it's just, because that would make it weirder. To me, there's no like trope to associate it with. The thing for me that I think is the most interesting is that the director of this movie is Marielle Heller, who last did A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is the Mr. Rogers biopic film with Tom Hanks. So I think that's just like way to show range. This will be coming out in the fall on Hulu, I believe. So we still have some time, and we'll still see some stuff about it. But what an interesting thing.
Dude, I hope it's Night Bitchin'. I hope it fucking rocks. Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah, so. We got Night House, Night Bitch. It's the whole night thing. Let's continue talking about things that are coming out. And we got some news about another film that's coming out that we're cautiously optimistic about. Pretty apprehensive about.
Fingies crossed.
The sequel to the classic film Beetlejuice is going to be called Beetlejuice.
You said it twice.
Oh shit! I can't say the actual name now.
You better be fucking careful, buddy.
All right, the new film is called Beetlejuice, and it's going to be out September 6th. Tim Burton again coming back to direct. We're going to have Jenna Ortega. Along with Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci, Justin Theroux, I believe, has been added to this film. We don't really know much else outside of the fact that we got an actual poster for it, and we have a release date. But again, I'm just so worried.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
worried.
definitely worried. I kind of liked what they did. I thought that what they did with the poster was pretty creative.
Yeah.
I was like, that's an interesting image. But yeah, who has any fucking idea? Hopefully the producers and Tim Burton and everyone working on this movie have heard people online for
Mhm.
years, not just about, this movie, but about Tim Burton's work in general. And hopefully they just really lean into practical and they don't go with the same visual look that has become Burton's like modern style. And
I
because it's
I
possible,
really yeah.
for them to make a good movie.
I
It's
agree, and I
doable.
think I don't have the actual quote, but I'm pretty sure there was like Willem Dafoe was saying that like this is the most fun he has had like filming a movie in a really long time, or maybe it was Michael Keaton, one of
Michael
them.
Keaton. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that's I mean that's good. I
Yeah, it's an amazing sign. I fingers crossed that it is
yeah
going to be amazing. I did see a tweet by a I'm so sorry, but the name is Brandon Strasnig.
sure
I don't know how, but uh and his actual Twitter handle is like a shortening BRNDNSTRSSNG, whatever, on Twitter, who had a tweet that made me laugh, and it says, Tim Burton hasn't made a watchable movie since the Clinton administration, but I'm sure it'll be different this time. And
yeah dude it's
I don't 100% agree, but I kind of like 97, 98% agree. I
yeah
think there's a few gems in between.
I like
I
Big
love
Eyes.
huh?
I like Big Eyes.
Yeah, but well, Big Eyes is fine. I love Sweeney Todd.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sweeney Todd's a good one. Yep.
that's about it.
Endless. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, dude. It's
Yeah.
well, we'll see what happens. I think we just got to leave
Yeah.
it there with we'll see what happens. But we don't have to stop talking about Tim Burton just yet because it was also announced.
Bro, what even?
It was announced that Tim Burton is directing a remake of Warner Brothers' Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. A
Yep.
couple of interesting things about this. A, Tim Burton directing it. Very curious about that. But B, I'm so sorry. I don't know if it's Gillian or Gillian Flynn, who wrote like Sharp Objects, Gone Girl,
Mhm.
is attached to write the screenplay,
Okay.
which to me is more interesting than Tim Burton directing, and far less worrying than Tim Burton directing.
Fair.
But yeah, I frankly don't know anything about Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. I'm glad that we're remaking a 50s sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Like that's if we're gonna remake something, at least remake something that like is gonna be really unique and wild, and not something that was made like 10 years ago. But yeah, you got any thoughts on this?
I think it could be a lot of fun. I have no clue what to expect. I personally think with something like this directly nonsensical, that it like a
Yeah,
concept like this, it has more charm in like old black and white, like whatever. To me personally, I kind of almost hope that they don't just take the concept and make it like a new movie. I hope that there are a lot of like references to that
he
vintage
goes
sort of
like Ed
style
Wood
filmmaking.
with it.
Yeah, like it doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily even have to be black and white, but even if they shot on film or at least like color graded and textured things enough that it felt like a 60s movie or something, I don't know. I visually I would have a lot of expectations, but overall it's a goofy concept. I'm sure there's going to I actually haven't seen the original. The closest I've seen to the original is the reference to it in Dude, Where's My Car? And
I don't even remember the reference.
no, there's just
No,
like the end of that movie, there's a giant woman.
got it.
Like yeah. But yeah, I'm in. Whatever. Let's do it. Let's see
Yeah, I
what
mean, I'm
happens.
not gonna see it. It's just
Right.
like, what are we doing here? I'm so
Yeah.
curious. I also will say that, in the reporting for this, I don't know if it was Deadline who initially reported this or who it was, but someone called Tim Burton director of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And guys,
No.
if anyone listens to us and is under the misconception that Tim Burton directed The Nightmare Before Christmas,
Nope.
We need to set that straight with you, okay?
Well, we need to make
Henry
a whole
Selick.
fucking episode about it.
Henry
Yeah, no
Selick,
way.
the godfather of stop motion animation,
Mhm.
directed that wonderful film. Tim Burton produced it, sure.
Yes.
Danny Elfman does music, sure.
And it is the concept is from Burton. Like Burton created the concept and the general story of that movie, yes. But there was this woman that was dating Danny Elfman at the time.
Okay.
And she was like, Danny Elfman has said multiple times that like the two of them basically really developed Jack and Sally, and she specifically developed Sally a lot, and like their relationship was like a big part. Like she wrote these songs with him.
Not
and
Catherine
stuff like
O'Hara,
that.
right? Like not the person who plays Sally.
No.
Okay.
And I hate that I don't know her name. I know she was working on the movie.
We told our listeners, hey guys, we're about to give you the
we know
facts.
everything. Well,
We're
yeah.
about to
Well,
give
so
you
I
the
mean,
car
Henry
facts.
Selick is like the main thing, but
Yeah.
a lot of these other people contributed to the heart of that movie. I will correct that soon. I wish it was easy because unfortunately, she's not given enough credit just in general, so it's not easy information to find. But I want to.
End of the day, bottom line. Tim Burton did not direct The Nightmare Before Christmas.
No.
Do not say that he did.
No. He was working on Batman. He was too busy working on Batman at the time.
He was too busy manning bats.
He would come in and like be on set and like adjust things every now and again. But for the most part, yeah.
That hill looks great.
Henry, you're killing it.
Henry,
you're killing it.
Henry, I love it. The mayor's face goes both ways. Love it. Love it. I don't know if that's how Tim Burton talks. He doesn't have a
I think so.
transatlantic accent. All right, one last thing that you probably already know, and then we'll get to the conversation with Andrew Cumming, director of Out of Darkness. Some sad news today to chat about, and I feel like we do this far too often, but I think I probably said that the last time someone died. But absolute legend actor Carl Weathers passed away yesterday as we're recording this. If you don't know Carl Weathers, you do. He was in Predator. He's Apollo Creed from the Rocky films. He's in Happy Gilmore, as well as Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Action Jackson. Recently, you probably know him from the Mandalorian, just all over the place. Absolutely wonderful actor, OG Predator actor again. So rest in peace. Very, very big bummer.
Yeah, very, very, very sad. I just saw that recently, and definitely a bummer. It makes me want to rewatch Predator specifically.
I was gonna say it makes me want to watch. Oh shit! I just lost it. What is it called? What's the golf movie called? I just said it.
It's Happy Gilmore.
Oh yeah. All right, take that again. Makes me want to rewatch Happy Gilmore because I knew what that movie was called.
In the hips. It's all in the hips.
On that note, very sad stuff, but happier stuff is our conversation with Andrew Cumming. Really excited for all the people listening this to get to go see his film in a theater. We mentioned this during the conversation, but I think we mentioned this. We saw it via screener and think that this film would be so great in a theater. So glad that it's getting a full theatrical release. This Paleolithic 45,000 years ago story about some of the first men. Sean, any final thoughts about our conversation with Andrew before we let the listeners do their thing?
Mainly just that I'm really excited to see him do more stuff. You can just tell that he is incredibly passionate about filmmaking and storytelling. We obviously talk a little bit about that. I think he's got a lot of big ideas, big concepts, and the passion and endurance to achieve them. Like just the amount of research you can tell that just went into this movie alone. The idea of this guy getting a crazy budget and even more resources in the future is very exciting to me. I think our chat with him is great. I think the movie's great, and you guys are going to like it.
On that note, we'll get you guys over to our conversation with Andrew Cumming, director of Out of Darkness. Stick around for our mostly horror recommendations of the week. Catch you on the other side. All right, we are joined today by Andrew Cumming. Andrew's feature film debut, the Paleolithic horror flick Out of Darkness, is out in theaters on February 9th. Andrew, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so stoked to have you, man. Yeah, really, really stoked to have you. We have been sitting here before this interview, at least me personally, just ripping and looking at a bunch of info and wiki pages about the Paleolithic era. It's a word that we haven't said since high school.
Yeah, it feels like I'm back and I'm studying, again, the early days that I haven't done since sitting in a classroom.
Realizing just how big the era is and stuff, and it's a big ground that you're covering in this movie. Before we jump into your movie Out of Darkness, we do want to ask one of our favorite questions to ask every guest that we bring on the show, and that is your intros to horror. We're looking for maybe a moment when you were a kid and you snuck out and saw something from behind the couch that you weren't supposed to see, or you had an adult in your life that might have scarred you with something a little earlier than they should have. Do you have anything like that you can share with us?
There's one very clear memory, and it was a short film, believe it or not, and it was on late night British television. And I can't remember the title of this thing, but the basic premise was there was a hitchhiker walking along the road, and he falls into a hole in the ground, and he goes up to his legs in this hole. And what follows is this story of just these surreal people that he meets as he's in this hole, and nobody will help him. And I'm watching this thing, and it's kind of funny and a bit strange. And I remember very clearly, we were in a hotel room, myself, my mom and my dad. I don't know where we were, but toward the climax of the short film is he suddenly is sucked into the ground. You don't know why, it's not explained, it comes out of nowhere, but he's just being sucked into the ground, he's scrabbling, he's crying for help, nobody helps him, and I freaked out. I remember very vividly having to be consoled by my parents for the rest of the evening because I just couldn't wrap my head around what I'd seen. You know when you just see something completely left field?
Yeah.
At that age, and it just punches you in the face. So there's that, there's the woman coming out of the bath in room 237.
Yep.
That just is... I've got that sort of tattooed under my eyelids.
Fair.
Yeah, so those are two, I think, that I saw probably too young.
Sure.
That had a big impact.
You never were able to figure out the short film or anything, or like what it was?
I've looked a few years ago, and I think I did find it, but it's popped out of my head as quickly as it came in. So I'll have to do a deep dive and see if I can find that, and I will pass it on because it was just this indelible image that I've never really forgotten.
Please do. That's after many episodes of our show and just like general conversations with friends. One of the things that we find particularly fascinating are those haunting images that you cannot place, and they're almost scarier because you have no clue what they're from. But that terrifying thing you saw as a kid that you just don't know what it is. But cool. If you find it, throw it our way.
We'll float this to our listeners too and see if they can scrounge up
help us figure it out.
Anybody who's schooled in British horror films, British short short films from maybe the late 80s, early 90s, like hit us up.
Not niche at all. Knows. Yeah, exactly. So Andrew, I do want to chat obviously about Out of Darkness, and I was going to ask this later in the conversation, but I'm actually going to pull it up now. So we're looking back, doing our research, and as recently as last August, this film was called The Origin. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, once this is picked up by Bleecker, and the film premiered in October of 2022, so it's been out for a while. At least people have been able to see it and talk about it. But this film is picked up by Bleecker for a U.S. release, and the title changes to Out of Darkness. I'm curious if there's something behind that. I'm sure that there's something behind that decision. I'm curious what that is that would lead you to change the title, and also maybe if you have any thoughts on what people may think about it in the U.S. versus where it's been released currently internationally.
Sure. Well, the good thing is it hasn't been released anywhere else yet. It's done a few festivals, but it's being released as Out of Darkness. But it came down to when we engaged with the fine folks at Bleecker, they were really supportive of the film. They wanted to give us a theatrical release, which was music to my ears because the film is always designed for that kind of experience. But there's this rather well-known filmmaker called Ava DuVernay who also had a film coming out called Origin.
Got it.
I think she maybe changed the title as well. and it looked like it was going to get a festival push, sorry, an awards push, and it was going to come out around the same time. And I think, wiser heads said we live in a world of algorithms and how that stuff works.
Yeah.
And what we don't want is the Ava DuVernay crowd landing on this and getting confused, and we don't want, vice versa. So it was put to myself and Oliver, the producer, how would you guys feel about a change based on that? And I said, well, yeah, I don't want to have come this far and have a lot of really irate Ava DuVernay fans like sending my agent hate mail, like,
Sure.
ban this shit. So so it was, and also there was no pressure from that film's people.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything like that. It was just a decision we made to say, okay, let's change it up. And then of course you go, okay, well, what is a good title that speaks to the film's themes and speaks to the visual language of the film and sounds like a horror movie? So yeah, we kind of went around the houses a little bit and settled on something that felt right, both because it sounds like a horror movie and it's also about us as a species, taking our place in the world and horrible things that we do in the dark. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I hadn't even thought of that. It's so fun. But who would be confused? One's called Origin, the other one's called The Origin. It's not that,
Yeah.
No,
yeah. I know, but then you get in that whole social network thing of drop the,
Yeah. It's all
sure.
Origin. No, that's a very fair reason that I actually haven't thought of, but I've seen that trailer a number of times. So that's
you know
so
what? That's
funny.
it. It just comes down to it's down to algorithms. That's it. It's as boring as that.
Interesting. You have to love the algorithm. So I mean, the film that you originally created, The Origin, we'll call it that for the sake of the conversation right now. We've read about this stemming from an idea that a producer you were speaking to wanted to make a Paleolithic horror film, and you were like, I would love to do that later in my career. But there seems to be some other things about the reasoning behind why you wanted to make this film, whether it's something that you watched when you were younger, like a documentary, or even like the representation of what we think about cavemen, if you will. I'm curious if you could like kind of tell us some of those thoughts and the reasonings behind why you wanted to make this film.
Yeah, I mean, I like most people. I think most people are fascinated and want to know more about our ancestors and where we came from, not just 50, 100 years ago, but all the way back. And I've always carried that that fascination. And round about the time I was finishing film school, I watched a documentary on the BBC, as you said, that was about early modern humans, and it just set something off in me. I just hadn't seen that time period before. And I don't want to give away, I don't know how you guys feel about spoilers. I don't want to say too much about what happens in Out of Darkness, but there's one key moment from one of these documentaries that I took away, the sort of key moment in our history as a species. Then I thought, wow, I'd love to see that represented on screen and just what that means. And then I read, someone put me onto William Golding, the author of Lord of the Flies. His second book is called The Inheritors, and I really recommend it. It's a fantastic read. And it's also set in this time period. And I finished that book and just had this epiphany about just us as a species and what we are, what we really are. When you boil it all down, we're just this fucking parasite. It just sucks all the goodness out of this earth, and the way we treat people. We're the way we treat people. Like, have we got any redeeming qualities at all? And then I read. I was on this journey, and I read Yuval Noah Harari's *Sapiens*, which takes us from the Big Bang right up to present day in terms of our history as a species. And he says that myth making is the thing that made us the dominant species on the planet. So all these ideas were swirling around in my head. Sociopolitically, Brexit was happening in the UK, and there was a lot of really divisive rhetoric. You guys were in the midst of the first Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah. Oh, let's keep it that way, Andrew. Don't say that.
Yeah,
don't say
wanna,
first.
I know. Well, I never want to assume anyone's politics, but hopefully the one and only.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of division, just bubbling up, and build the wall, them and us. So all these ingredients. So then I felt there's something there. There's something you could talk about. You can talk about now, if you make a film about back then. But again, I thought it would be my 2001. If I, one day, if I make if I make maybe a Harry Potter movie, and that somebody will come and say to me, "Well, what would you like to do?" I want to do The Inheritors. And then I met Oliver Castman, and he said, "Well, why don't you do it as your first film?" And that was it. It was just okay. It's nice to meet somebody that gives you the permission to think that ambitiously.
Yeah.
We went off on that adventure together.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love all the thought process that clearly went into it, and watching it, like, obviously I picked up on so many themes, everything from like the violence and human nature and how we do seem to suck, and we, it since the beginning and until now, we have not grown past operating primarily from arrogance and fear, it seems like. And I felt like there were comments potentially of xenophobia, or maybe I was putting my own stuff in there, and just all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think that you touch on so much in this movie so well, which brings me to, I want to, going through some of your other interviews, you were speaking a lot about storytelling and the history of storytelling. And going through your Twitter, I can just tell it's an art form that you love so much. So it's kind of an open-ended question, but could you just talk about that a little bit, maybe in reference to this movie?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I go back as well to the book Sapiens, which is another incredible read, and I really recommend it to your listeners. The reason that we survive, okay, and the reason that, we're having this conversation, and the reason that we know anything about ourselves and about the world we live in, is because of storytelling. And it's been around storytelling has been around as long as we've been around.
Yes.
And myself and Oliver and Ruth, the writer of the film, we just love that notion that you could start this movie with 6 people around a flickering light hearing a story. And, that very meta comment on a bunch of people in a dark room with a flickering light behind them, whether that's celluloid or digital, and going on that journey. And I think that's the other interesting parallel, apart from the social political aspect that we wanted to try and slip in there, is just these people that you're watching from 45,000 years ago, they're not that different to us. How much has changed? These people are our great, 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 great grandparents, however many generations back. So all these lovely parallels just helped close that distance between us and them.
Yeah.
Because often you watch period movies, or you go and see a play or whatever, and you sort of sit back in your chair and go, "Oh God, they're so like us." And I wanted to change that. I wanted you to lean in and say, "No, I'm so like them," or "I know someone like him," or "I've experienced what she's experienced." And all of that stuff hopefully helps the audience get over the fact that, hey, put your smartphone down, turn off, and come back in time with us, and go on this journey. So that parallel, that myth making quality, that's really what they were doing around a campfire. We now do mostly in a theater, but also we do on our sofas watching Netflix. Right, storytelling's part of us and always will be.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm curious about you talking about the different books that you read, kind of in preparation for this, or in coming up with the full concept. You also talked with a paleontologist, as a consultant. Were there things? Yeah, deep research. Are there things that you maybe didn't anticipate needing to change, or misconceptions that you maybe had about how you were going to tell the story, that having a consultant was able to kind of shift the way that you approached it?
It was really interesting because Rob Dennis, who is one of the foremost experts in the UK on early modern humans, he comes from the new school, and there's the old school guys who say if we didn't dig it up, we can't prove it. Whereas Rob was much more blue. He was a blue sky thinker, and his whole sort of motto was, if we can do it, they could do it. They just had a different way of doing it. Like they were able to straighten ivory from mammoth tusks or wherever, and we don't know exactly how they did it. It's just they obviously had their technique, and it's been lost in time. As we moved through. So he was really great. He pointed us in the right places. Like, you should check out this Sungir dig site in Russia. You should check out what they found in this cave in the south of France. But he really was he was really supportive, and we would just, in the early days especially, we were just pumping him with questions, around what did they eat, what did they look like, did they speak, and he, a lot of times he would say yes, it's almost definite they could speak. What did they look like? Honestly, we don't know. We've got slices of genomes and sequences from various remains, but we don't totally know. So it was great, because then I could tell my HODs, do the research, but don't become beholden to it. We are still making a movie. This isn't like, a documentary. So
yeah, don't put box yourself in with the facts, but educate and lift yourself up with them. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Definitely get that. Yeah, totally. And I love that you got you leaned into a newer age guy about these facts, and instead of people that are purist on these old ideas. I've been thinking a lot about aliens lately, but that's a whole other conversation. But you talked a little bit about how they speak. One of the most interesting facts about this movie, which there are plenty, but one thing that really blew my mind was that you guys created a language, and you brought in, a linguist. I apologize, I can't remember his name at the moment.
Daniel Anderson. Yeah,
Daniel Anderson. Can you talk about that process in creating? Is it Tola? Is that how you say it?
Tola, yes.
Tola.
Which sounds fancy, but it's just the origin language. But I think in Sanskrit,
simple.
Tola, Tola is a weight of gold in Sanskrit. So that was a nice little Easter egg. I originally didn't want to do it in another language. I just thought that would limit my audience, because these are the dumb thoughts that go through a first-time director's mind when you're worried about, is this movie going to hit? Am I going to get to make another one? All these silly thoughts that you try and force to the back of your mind, but they're still there. And then over time, as you develop the idea and you're workshopping scenes, and just the further you go down the road, you realize I have to do this. I have to take a big swing. I'm already taking a big swing, but let's go the whole way. And so once we'd made that decision, just to give the film more authenticity, and again, you're trying to draw the audience in. You don't want them to sit back and go, oh, it's a bunch of actors and they're all speaking in a different accent. Just try and create this cohesion between the group and make them feel like a real family, and that there's interrelations there. So it was a case of asking Daniel. Oliver, the producer, knew Daniel, and we set him the challenge. Can you take Basque, Sanskrit, some Arabic, and try and find some root language, some mother tongue that might have birthed all these languages? And he disappeared with the script for 4 weeks. And when he came back, I sat at this desk and I turned the page and said it out loud to myself. And I thought, oh, this is going to work. I think we'll be okay. But then you don't know until you're on set properly,
Sure.
You've got the costume and you've got the landscapes behind you, and that's when I had the affirmation of, all right, I think that was the right choice. I think we'll be okay.
Couple thoughts. First off, 4 weeks, that seems like such a big turnaround. To me, that seems like such an impossible task. And I'm like, I guess for a linguist, it's different.
It. We got the green light very quickly, because this all happened during COVID. This was like the pre-vaccine days, the sort of the dog days of November time when we shot.
Sure.
So everything was turning around so quickly. It was just a case of, can you drop whatever you're doing and have a look at this?
Could you just whip up a language real fast, man?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's insane. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say also, I really applaud the decision to commit to the language and everything, because it's all the marketing concerns that you said, you labeled them as stupid. They're very logical concerns to have. A lot of people, it's a bummer to see how many people are unwilling to watch a film because it's because they might have to read some subtitles,
not in English.
So just wanted to say I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, it's getting better. Like Parasite won the Oscars 2-3 years ago. It was. So you can see that there's an appetite for it. Like Squid Games blew up. Yes. Game of Thrones, Star Wars, whatever. People are getting used to this, constructed languages now, and people can look down, read something, and look up again. It's not a big ask, but I think there's still there's still a slight prejudice there that it's being overcome.
To your point, though, it's because people would need to put down their phone to be able to read what's on the screen, and that's what makes it tough. I honestly, I will say, like Sean and I saw this film obviously screened it from the comfort of my home, but very excited to watch it in a theater because I feel like it's an even more immersive experience when you don't have any of those any possible distractions, like even the light, the small light next to me reflecting off the screen, which kind of leads me to the next question that I want to ask, which is about the photography of this film, right? So the film's called Out of Darkness. A lot of the film happens in darkness. But it is shot so much better than most films that show darkness where you can't see anything. And that, credit to Ben Fordsman, your DP, who I also love, Saint Maud. So as soon as I saw that connection, I was like, oh, this makes sense. But, knowing that you were shooting this in the middle of COVID, knowing that there were some restrictions, even with maybe like the budget that you're working with to make this sort of film, what was it like to shoot with maybe limited light or shoot in a different way than you might have if you had a huge set around you?
Yeah, we see originally. Have you seen The Northman?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so in The Northman, the nighttime scenes almost have this monochromatic slate gray look.
Yep.
That was originally what I wanted to do. Like I had this whole thing in my head of the firelight will die and you'll have a black screen and slowly you close in on a shot of iris opening and then the world would start to come up in this monochromatic grayscale. And Ben did some tests and at our budget level, it was never going to work. Can we do it day for night? And then I saw The Northman with its, huge budget, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the money you needed to do.
Right.
Damn you, Eggers. Damn you. But no, I love that movie. I think it's fantastic. Great to see somebody having such a big swing. But that was originally what we wanted to do. Is it was going to look like an Ansel Adams kind of monochromatic landscape.
Got it.
And then when we figured we can't do that, we'll just have to do it the old-fashioned way with light. It's like, okay, how do you just get enough light in and no more? And I think anyone who's ever made a horror movie or anything that relies on darkness, you're constantly fighting. You need to be able to see a little bit, but not too much. And every screen's different. My local cinema, I'm dreading it because the fire exit sign is just in their worst place and you get that spill. And I just wish they could put like a black flag or something just to. Anyway,
you're speaking to my soul right now, Andrew.
Yeah, and so but you just have to do what you can with the monitor in front of you on the day, and then when you get into the grade, just do it to the best of your ability. But Ben made some really brave choices. So some of the scenes. We have the sort of the moonlight, I guess, because you need something, right? There are no phone torches, you can't, car headlights, none of that. It's all man-made. So he came up with this idea, and I think it was another thing that we saw in The Witch, actually, that they did really effectively was just dropping a light and having it rake across. So rather than it being like a top light, it kind of comes in lower and just rakes across the trees. So you get all these lovely... all the trees just kiss the light really nicely, and you get the sort of that line pattern. And then it's nice because your actors kind of crossing through these little pools of light and back into shadow, pool of light, which is great for the genre and for these set pieces. And then otherwise it's firelight, and we used a real fire. And I think we used to. I used to sort of mock Ben at times because the SFX guy would rig up the fire, they run a gas pipe line like maybe 20 feet away from the actors to make sure nobody blew up. And he would just say to them, up a bit, down a bit, up a bit, down a bit, until he got just the right light level to give the face enough light, but not too much. And then he'd maybe bring something in, like a tiny little LED panel for the tiniest amount of fill, or just something in the other eye. And that was it. Like, It was very. I mean, the gaffer on the job, he would occasionally have to hold a polyboard, but those guys, I've got some funny photographs of those guys just sitting around. Because that was the reason I really loved Ben, is because we share a similar sensibility in terms of how we think movies should look. But what he can do with some ND filters in front of the lens and a bit of polyboard, and how you can just sculpt the natural light, that was really important because it can't look artificial and it's got to feel real. And then, then you're thinking, okay, I don't want the whole movie to look the same way. So then in the script stage, I pitched the idea of why don't we do something during the Aurora Borealis, so we can get a different light source in. But if we choose the right time to do it, it could be at a point where everything's falling apart. And most of the time in movies, whenever there's a Northern Light sequence, people look up at it with this awe, just, oh, isn't it so beautiful? And I thought, no, I think if I lived in that time and suddenly there was this green mist in the sky, I think, fuck, am I dead?
Yep.
Yeah.
The spirits are coming for me.
What unholy phenomenon is this that's going to,
Right.
devour me? So yeah, just adding that sort of mystical, spiritual danger, but also finding another way to motivate a light source. Just trying to think out of the box like that.
Yeah.
Was tough, but it's a good challenge.
Oh yeah, and it makes the film all that much more grounded because of the way that you shot it. I will say during the Aurora Borealis scene, I had to rewind because I was like, did I miss something? Like, I was in the same mind space as them.
Yeah,
like,
right.
what supernatural thing is happening? And I was like, oh no, it's just the Northern Lights.
Yeah, but this is the thing is, we take all this for granted because we can explain it all. But they could turn around a corner and fall off the face of the earth for all they knew. I mean, it could be anything over that hill. So yeah, that was that. I'm glad you say that because it was constantly trying to reinforce that thing. This is all new. Every day is an adventure for these guys.
Yeah.
100%. You were talking a little bit about that sort of gray scale for the night from the Norsemen and stuff. And obviously I'm not in your head. I don't know exactly what vision you had, but I think I would call this movie like a perfect example of like restrictions ending up being better for the movie, because especially those dark fire scenes, because I was so impressed. I've sat around a lot of fires, and the darkness outside of that little ring that you have is so much darker when you have that fire in your face, and this movie just nailed that. I think if I had even when things do get dark and you can't see for a few seconds, if it had gone to gray, it would have almost taken me out of it. Maybe that's just my personal taste. But either way, I loved how it ended up. I think it worked out perfect. Everything fell into place.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's always the way creation is the what is it, the mother of necessity or something like that. You have to you cut your cloth, or your fur loins or whatever it is. You just have to so keep going. And like you say, like you have an idea and you have to make your next idea your best idea and throw that one away. So it's good training.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like clearly worked. Speaking a little bit more about that light and that darkness and how you played with it, I want to talk a little bit about the monster. That's, obviously we watch a lot of horror movies on the show. We see people approach monsters a ton of different ways, giving everything up from the go with an awesome design, having an awesome design and holding it till the end, and how light plays is so big. Could you just talk a little bit about the decisions that you made with the monster, both from the design and then lighting it? I think you guys killed it. You showed us a little bit right at the beginning of this figure. And
the sound design
monster,
too.
What was that, Steve?
I was going to say the sound design as well too. I think is was such a major decision in how you were revealing.
100%. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the decisions you made?
What I should say is there'll be spoilers now. Okay. So that because there's no
everyone.
Yeah. So So here we go. So obviously the reveal that happens at the end of the second act, that it turns out there are Neanderthals, okay, in this area, and they see these 6 people coming in a boat into their land, and they think, oh shit, what are we going to do? So they've tried to intimidate them, scare them away. They take the child because they want to look after the child. They can see that everybody's struggling. So you start from that position of, okay, you're a Neanderthal. There's not enough of you to like try and take them all on. So what do? How do you dress yourself up to try and be more than the sum of your parts? To try and take on this demonic presence. And this is another thing that came from Rob Dennis, is he said that there's strong evidence that Neanderthals, when they killed animals with feathers, they plucked the feathers and kept the feathers, but we don't know what for. Could be costume, I thought, oh, maybe I was sort of blue sky thinking, thought maybe they use it to insulate their caves. You could have these walls of caves. And I mentioned this to Jamie Lapsley, my production designer, and she was like, we can't afford that.
Too many feathers.
Yeah, save it for the next one. Damn, because it would have been so cool just like go to the cave and there's just all these feathers and the wind blowing them, whatever. I'm over it, clearly. And then I thought, okay, well, let's translate it to this creature, this thing that they become. So it was like, okay, let's see. They would maybe get some animal remains, some skulls. They could maybe create this kind of headpiece, and if we shape it in such a way that looks quite aerodynamic, so it's got speed to it. And then the rest of it was just, you know what? They're just going to pick up mud and viscera and whatever, and just smear it all over themselves, and that's our monster. Like it was another thing. It was born of necessity of what would you have at that time period to do this, and I couldn't cheat. Like I couldn't show the thing flying through the trees. I couldn't.
Sure.
I just couldn't have the audience get to that reveal and then say, but wait a minute. I'm sure there was like 5 of them, and they were like doing backflips and breathing fire and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
So we really had to keep them at arm's length and keep them in the darkness and use the sound design. Like Paul Davies and his team did a fantastic job in Dolby Atmos, I should say, to create this. That's when we could be very subjective, and that's when we could exaggerate the noises, because whatever is beyond that firelight could be the biggest, baddest, scariest motherfucker you've ever seen in your life, right? So that felt like that was how we made it feel like a beast, a monster, a demon. And that's why we have to limit so much of the shots of it running around and watching them and everything from a distance, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time is Alien, and there's a lot of parallels in the story structure between Alien and this movie. Myself, Oliver,
Absolutely.
We bow down at the altar of that movie, and a lot of more insightful things have been said about it than I can possibly add. But where Alien breaks down slightly is when Yaphet Kotto and Veronica Cartwright are killed, and you see this thing full length, and you go, oh, it's a guy in a suit. Like, of course it's a guy in a suit. All right, he's 6'9", and he's built like a stick insect, but it's a guy in a suit. And we just had to avoid the words "guy in a suit" until the moment where we reveal, hey, it's a guy in a suit. So that really, again, the necessity of the storytelling and where that reveal comes dictated the entire approach to the monster, and when you show it, how you show it, and when you break the illusion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I loved it. It's again, I've seen so many at this point, and it felt familiar, but done so well with things that it felt familiar to, and then it truly surprised me. Like I was like, even if this thing is just straight humanoid, I didn't think it was going to be just a normal human,
right.
Or Neanderthal.
Yeah.
And yeah, you did such a great job just from lighting and sound and just all the tension and the way that it's edited in making me overestimate its abilities and how many of them there are, and yeah, absolutely killed it. And we love a guy in a suit. Sometimes it's a guy in a suit kills a CG monster.
Oh,
I'd say at least 8 out of 10. Yeah,
because it's tangible, right? And again, it's that thing of there are restrictions to what a guy in a suit can do.
Yeah.
So you've got to use the tools, the other tools on your utility belt to try and sell this thing. So that that's the challenge.
Yeah, I also think
that
just because of the setting and the time period of this film, there's no precedent for what we couldn't say that, oh, we expect it to be X, Y, and Z, because we have never seen a representation in this way. So even if the Neanderthal is stronger than we anticipated, there's no precedent for that in our minds. So we're not going to be like, oh, that's unrealistic. It's easier to suspend that disbelief in this setting, which I obviously loved. So we're coming up on the end of our conversation, Andrew. I do want to play a quick game of rapid fire with you, if you'll oblige me, and I'll make it really easy for you. So you talked about some of the animals back in the Paleolithic era, but we don't see any animals in this film. And what I want to do is I want to hit you with some of the animals from the Paleolithic era, and I want you to tell me if this group would have survived if they came across.
Oh my god!
Obviously,
I'm
I'm curious. All right, we'll start off a bit easier. A giant beaver. All right, start off with a giant beaver.
Just the idea that there were giant beavers, I'm going to say true.
Crazy, right? Yeah. Do you think that they would have been able to tackle that?
Oh wait, is the question? Would our Homo sapiens be able to kill
Yeah,
them?
would
Yeah,
your group be able
would
to
yeah.
defeat this?
Oh, well, how giant is a giant beaver?
I think
That's
I
where-
think it's like
Like
smaller.
6 foot?
Yeah, I think it's like 6 foot. Yeah, but you got
Really?
a group of 6
I should
people.
have made that the monster. Well, I think the giant beaver, if it was quick enough, could maybe eat the spear as it's being poked. So I'm going to say I think the giant beaver could possibly, it could be a draw. I think that could be a draw.
A draw. Okay, I feel like we're gonna get draws or no as a lot of these answers. We get the next thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of a glyptodon. It's a giant armadillo that's the size of a small car.
Yeah, I mean,
These things are nuts.
you'd have to flip that. You'd have to flip
That's
that
true.
to be able to get it right. So
That's
unless
true.
unless you've got a crowbar to get underneath it, I'm going to say that whatever it was you said would just walk away.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, would pose no threat.
Best case, they get to ride it.
Yes.
So they're not killing
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
We don't have them anymore, so you know that didn't happen.
Oh,
What
that's
about
a shame.
what about a giant sloth? These guys were like over 10 feet tall.
They were huge.
Yeah.
But
They were
small,
like 20 feet
Yeah,
tall.
they're
but
huge.
super
Yeah.
slow, right?
I guess that's
probably.
fair. Yeah.
I mean, even the small ones are slow. So if you've got a giant one that's carrying a lot of weight, no, I think the Homo sapiens would win.
All right, we got one win, and I think there's some ones where I'm not even gonna bother. The cave bear, the dire wolf, the saber-toothed cat. We're gonna avoid those. What about a woolly rhino? Oh, do you think they would defeat a woolly rhino?
I know. Yeah, they must have. But they must have because yeah, I think as long as you avoid the charge. I mean, look, I'm talking like I've been there. But I think if there's enough of you, if you hunt in a pack,
Yeah.
I think you could take it down.
Yeah.
But it would be
Sure.
but somebody's going to take the hit. Somebody has to be the one with the red rag, right? Who
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have your 2 spearsmen on the side, I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not the hunter.
Yeah.
we're strategizing now.
one on one, you're dead.
No
But if
shot.
You've got,
Done.
if
Yeah.
you've got your
No
squad
way.
with you, your hunting squad, then I think you'd be
100%.
Sean brought up that woolly rhinos were probably what started like the unicorn mythology, which is really fair if you think about it, you know? So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just throwing
You come across one albino one and you have a whole legend.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, this movie had us looking at so many
Yes,
things.
all over the place.
before we got
Cool, I love
started.
this. It's great.
It's
I'm gonna
great.
watch some
Well,
docs.
listen, Andrew, we've really appreciated this. This is one of my favorite films of the year so far, and just an absolute blast to watch. So really excited for people to check it out. As we do wrap this up, though, we would like to ask you for what we call our mostly horror recommendations. So what that's going to be is a horror film and a non-horror film that you would recommend to our listeners. You used the term blue sky earlier. You got blue sky here. You can recommend anything that you want, new or old, whatever it is. But would love to hear what you got for us.
Horror. There's this crazy Spanish film. I can't remember the year. I think it's the 70s, and the English translation is "Who Can Kill a Child." You guys know this one?
This is
Oh,
this
no.
is no, we do know this because 2 interviews ago someone recommended the same film.
Nice. Okay.
Wait, really?
Barnaby
Oh, I don't remember.
Barnaby Clay, but that's what a
yes.
interesting, unique film for 2 people to recommend. But I would love to hear your take on it.
Okay.
A friend gave it to me and said, "Check this out. It's pretty crazy." And I mean, it's very dated in the way it's made.
Yeah.
But it's the basic plot line is this young couple are on a holiday. They go to the Spanish island, and all the adults are dead, and the kids have all just gone crazy. And also the woman, she's pregnant, and the baby starts to like kill her from the inside. And then I don't want to spoil it, but the ending is fantastic because he's about to get off the island. There's a police boat coming to the island, and he's fighting these rabid kids, like feral animals, and the police think he's attacking them, so they kill the guy. And then and the police get on the island and say, "Oh, what's happened? Where are your parents?" And the children point to the into the town. The police go running to the town, and the kids get on the boat and go to the mainland, and that's the
Oh.
end.
Hell yeah.
Oh my
And,
god.
and it starts with this montage, which is a bit heavy-handed, of obviously all the horrible things that have happened to children in that period, and it's all the movie's basically saying, well, what happens if the kids eventually absorb that terror and that violence and turn it back on the perpetrators, i.e., their parents.
Yeah.
And I think I've pitched it to a few people, and they're like, "You can't make that." But I think the remake is there's something in there, and I would love to have a shot at it. But everybody's like, "Don't do it! Don't do it! It's career suicide."
No,
Yeah.
they're underestimating today's audience.
Yes.
You can
I know.
totally
I
make
love
that.
I love the
Yeah.
thought of that. I love the thought of that.
I say keep pushing
Yes.
for it.
What about a non-horror film?
Oh, That's harder because then you've got the entire
Yep,
the
everything
entire
else.
history of cinema. Oh geez, something I've seen recently, or
Yeah,
Sure.
doesn't have to be the ultimate, just something that
Something you'd
feel
recommend,
like
yeah.
maybe, yeah, that folks might not have seen or.
you know what? Like a film that comes to mind that some people have seen, but some might this. Robert Bresson, right, the famous French filmmaker, he made this amazing movie called A Man Escaped, and it is about a man escaping from a prison. And I haven't seen it now for a few years, but the way Bresson has a very austere style, and I don't think it always works because he also uses a lot of non-actors. But that movie was so thrilling and so moving, and it's so pure in a way because it is about a man trying to escape from this prison. So you've also got the breakout, which is very thrilling in its own way, but it's also a meditation on freedom and liberty and all these things we take for granted. And it just popped into my head. So again, you said trust your gut. And I thought, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that movie in so long, and I was so impressed with it when I saw it in film school. And I thought, yeah, I'll throw that in there. A bit of Bresson. There you go.
Absolutely.
Like Killer
Love it.
Children and Bresson.
Love
Like,
it.
there you
It's a
go.
great
Perfect.
combination. They go well together. What a pair. Well, Andrew, thank you again for your time. Again, really appreciate it. Love the film. Everyone, should check out Out of Darkness in theaters February 9th. Andrew, thank you again.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to our conversation with Andrew Cumming, director of Out of Darkness. And thank you again to Andrew, if you're listening to this, for hopping on and chatting with us. It's now time for our mostly horror recommendations of the week. Sean, you go first.
Okay. Well, so first off, I want to go back. This is a small little add-on to things you already know earlier. I just wanted to mention we talked obviously a bit about Beetlejuice, and we mentioned Catherine O'Hara and talking about Nightmare Before Christmas. I
Yeah.
didn't bring up that Catherine.
Mm.
Catherine has been confirmed, or at least there have been rumors, and then she has confirmed the rumors
Mhm.
that she will be joining The Last of Us season 2. And I've been racking my brain trying to figure out who it is that she's going to play. Because
You played the second game, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Did you?
I just downloaded.
Yeah,
I
you-
just
you
downloaded
did.
the remaster,
Okay.
to play 2. I started playing it. Something happened near the beginning that made me go, I'm upset, and then I stopped playing it.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna jump back in.
It's
Yeah,
so
I
good.
know the narrative of not the story, but I know
Yeah.
the way that the game is told by
Mhm.
like the POVs.
Sure.
But yeah, but I want to jump back in so I can watch it when it comes out. So
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very, very good. Highly recommend that you do that. Highly recommend that anyone that has not played those games fix
good.
that issue. But yeah, all right. So into Rex. This week I've been working on a bunch of different things. So I haven't been watching as much as I was a few days ago, but I did decide to finally catch up on a franchise that I was not very excited about when the first movie came out, and that is the Suicide Squad movies.
Oh, okay.
What? Why were you?
Didn't expect that.
Oh, where do you think I was going? You
I
got
don't
so
know.
shocked.
I
Oh,
didn't know where you were going.
got you. So when I saw the first Suicide Squad movie that they did, I thought that Margot Robbie did an amazing job as Harley Quinn. But for the most part, that movie felt like a really long trailer. It was just like introducing character after
Yeah.
character, and I wasn't able to like care about anything or feel any grounded in the story. I didn't like it that much, and I have not seen it since I saw it in theaters. Because of that, I never got around to seeing Birds of Prey or Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad. So that's 2020 for Birds of Prey and 21 for the Suicide Squad. And the past 2 days, I did Birds of Prey, and then I did the Suicide Squad. I'm just gonna say just quickly that I didn't love Birds of Prey, but I liked it a lot more than I liked the original. It was definitely good. But it still had something about the way that it bounced around. I was still kind of like not entirely leaning into, but I do love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and I think that movie solidified that even more for me.
Yep.
Plus, I didn't have to deal with Leto's Joker,
Jared
which
Leto.
I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
I like Jared Leto in other movies.
Yeah.
I find him a questionable character in the world,
Yeah.
but I don't know enough about him to feel entirely one way or the other. I think having a cult is interesting.
Just do
Just-
30 Seconds to Mars. Just
Yeah.
do that. Just
And
you've made so many good movies. You
yeah,
can stop doing movies if you want. Just do 30 Seconds to Mars.
sure.
If you want to stop both,
Yeah.
that's fine too. You've done enough, Jared. Jared, you've done it. Do you know they're playing at Barclays in August? 30 Seconds to
Oh.
Mars, and I'm so
I didn't-
excited. Them and AFI.
Oh, what the fuck?
And I think it's them, AFI, and someone else. I don't remember who. I want to say Poppy. That can't be right. But
Let's go.
It's definitely 30 Seconds to Mars and AFI. When they announced the tour, Jared Leto climbed the Empire State Building and then announced it. That was like the publicity stunt. Very literally
Wow.
publicity stunt.
I
Yeah,
didn't hear
Jared.
about it, so it
Jared,
wasn't
you've done enough things,
that
man.
big.
All right.
It's so I
continue.
have to also say really quick that I think that he's clearly a good actor. He's shown that he has amazing acting chops. The Joker was not entirely his decision. Like that is a direction that the writers and the creative directors and whatever of that movie decided to go. He's just obviously a huge part of it, but is not fully responsible for how that Joker came out. Either way, Birds of Prey, it's fine. The Suicide Squad kicked ass. I enjoyed it immensely more than the other two, and hope that they stick with that vibe, that direction, moving forward. And I'm even cool with them doing like different characters for every mission. Like every Suicide Squad mission that they have, it makes sense to just like the premise of what the Suicide Squad is. It would be cool to just kind of like always have a new batch of people, with maybe some like tie throughs and stuff. You never saw it?
I didn't watch it. Yeah. So I can't really comment. It's one of those movies I was like really excited to watch and then like just never saw.
Sure.
Cause I liked those kind of like spin-offs. Like spin-off DC movies, whatever, like those sort of more siloed ones. I will say I'm curious, and this is not, our forte because we're a horror movie podcast, but James Gunn is now the CEO of DC and like is leading those films.
Yeah.
And like he did, that's a DC movie. Right? That's DC. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. That's DC. He did that movie. And like obviously like Guardians is, that whole series is great. So
yeah.
It's not surprising to me that that's a good film, and I definitely want to watch it.
It definitely felt like it was leaning more into the sort of like humor and mood of Guardians, but without absolutely being that. The way that
everything's a joke,
and the way that the style of Guardians poisoned the MCU instead of just being like this wonderful addition to it and its own thing. The way it just kind of bled into everything else and didn't work. It's a good balance here. Right? It's a really good movie, so I highly recommend anybody that thought that they didn't like what they were doing with Suicide Squad at all. I mean, I don't give a shit about the DC universe, in terms of like the cinematic universe. I saw Man of Steel, hated it so much that the next movie that I saw was that first Suicide Squad and was like, oh, it's just as bad. So I definitely don't need to see anything else in between.
You saw The Batman though, right?
Well, you're talking with Robert
Pattinson.
Yeah, but that's not part of that.
Yeah, okay. I was just double checking.
Yeah, no. Okay, so yes, but in terms of like, this was a part of like their overall Justice League universe. And I mean, even though it had a different vibe, I don't know. All the Justice League shit, garbage. Like I heard people were like, you should at least see Wonder Woman, and I'm like, maybe I will, but I couldn't possibly tell you how much I dislike the visual look of every single movie that is a part of that franchise. I'm just not into it.
Shout out to Zack Snyder. Yep.
Yeah. Woo. Sorry, I'm not trying to shit on Zack's life, man, but it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing.
Yeah. You're not the only one who feels that way, so it's all good.
All right.
Good.
I've talked
Good rec.
enough.
I want to watch the Suicide Squad. Definitely.
Do it.
Definitely want to watch it. I have a couple of recs. So I've seen a couple of films over the past 3 or 4 days, and all of them I pretty much enjoyed. I did watch one movie that is not a rec, but I will tell people to watch it, I guess. That's weird. But it's a rec. So but it's not, I'm not going to recommend, I'm not going to say I like this movie, but if you're curious, I think it's worth a watch. So actually I have 4. So I really love the movie Thoroughbreds, directed by Corey Finley. He did another film called We Work, which I didn't see, funny enough, stars Jared Leto. But then his newest film, that's not like with a big actor or anything, is called Landscape with Invisible Hand. And basically the premise of the film, it just came out at the end of last year.
Not even heard of it.
It's, no one has heard of it. The premise essentially is aliens landed on our planet. So you're hooked, but aliens landed on our planet, and
so they're present. The the premise of this movie is the truth. Sorry,
okay.
Continue.
Aliens landed on our planet, and essentially, they can like manufacture things way better than we can, and for whatever reason, economically, the whole world is just like tanked.
Also the truth.
And the aliens are replacing a lot of jobs, so like they're replacing teachers and like the teachers.
Jobs.
And but basically, one way to make money, because these aliens can't feel love, is everyone has these like nodes, and you put this node on, and you can cast your perception, everything that you see and feel, as like a streaming service. And so basically one way to make money is people that are in relationships will put these nodes on, and then people can watch your relationship. Aliens, I mean, can watch your relationship and pay you to watch you being in love. That's the premise. And so it's an interesting movie. It relies a lot on Tiffany Haddish acting, and that's just not a good start. And so I have my problems with it, but it's still, it's interesting and it's original. And so I guess I'll recommend people watch it for that reason. But movies I liked that I just saw. I watched Birth, Rebirth.
And?
I enjoyed it. I don't think I loved it maybe as much as you do, but I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
I love both leads, like you were saying. Especially, I'm trying not to butcher her name. Not Carla. Marin Ireland. Is wonderful. She is just like
her eyes are nuts in that movie.
But she's just the way that she delivers lines. She's also the daughter in The Dark and the Wicked. She's also in The Empty Man. So she's like getting a lot of horror shit recently. But really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the premise. And it was like really kind of like simple and tight the way that they did it. So dug that for sure. I'm gonna skip over the one I watched after that. Last night, finally watched the OG Funny Games.
Yeah, dude, I saw that you watched that.
I love the American version, the shot-for-shot remake. I enjoyed the version I watched last night. There is nothing more annoying than the song that plays at the beginning and the end, and I know that's the thing. But god damn it,
so good.
If that doesn't just, I basically just muted my TV for a couple minutes, but it's great. I feel like even, and I haven't seen the American one in a while, but even though it's shot for shot, I feel like the older version winks more at the audience than this one does.
Okay.
I feel like the original one winks more at the audience than the newer one does, than the remake does. But besides that, I thought it was wonderful. Everything, the long shot still feels just as long. Like, I think the lead actress, Naomi Watts' character, feels even more in distress than Naomi actually does. Like, it feels more real. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and it's like apples to apples. I mean, it's shot the exact same way. And I think just personally, I guess I like the newer one because I don't have to read subtitles, and it just is a little, looks a little nicer to me. But I will say the way that they lit the older one, they like underlit it, so everything feels kind of dark and grungy, which is wonderful as well. So really dug that, and glad I finally watched it. But my highest rec of the grouping right now and this is along Mostly Horror Rex, is the film Sick of Myself, which was
You
recommended to
finally saw
us
it.
by Gabriel Beer Gislason.
Yep.
Christopher Borgli, the director, did Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage, which just came out this past year, which I absolutely loved. I know our friends from Eye of the Duck enjoyed it as well. And it was funny when we were talking with Adam and from Eye of the Duck, and he said he didn't want to watch Sick of Myself because it was about an influencer, and he just didn't want to watch a movie about an influencer. Happy to say this movie's not about an influencer. It's about this guy and girl who are in a relationship, and this girl craves attention more than anything else. And when her boyfriend's getting more attention for becoming an artist than she is for not really doing anything, she goes to drastic measures to get attention. And it is fucking dark. It is so funny. It is gross at parts. It's tough to watch at parts, but I think it's just such a where Dream Scenario it plays with dream logic, and it needs to get a bit more abstract in places. Like Sick of Myself is very like simplistic plot, but just fucking nails the execution. Like absolutely nails the execution. So I loved it. I instantly bought the movie. Like as soon as I was done, I was like, I need to own this. I like it more than Dream Scenario. I'm going to watch his other film, which is called Drib, I believe. But just like 10 out of 10 would recommend it to anybody.
Okay.
And it, as soon as possible, if you want to watch a movie, watch Sick of Myself. It is so good.
Deal.
I watched it on, I can't remember where I watched it. It's streaming on a service. So if you look it up and you have all of them like we do, it's streaming somewhere.
I still haven't seen Dream Scenario, so I'll probably do that first and then Sick of Myself, and maybe even, double feature, do it kind of like I did Suicide Squad one night.
And there's no one is more recent, and like Dream Scenario is more recent and has Nick Cage in it, and then the other one is like there's no reason to do them in any order, but Sick of Myself is so good.
You saying that Sick of Myself is better makes me want to do that one after Dream Scenario.
Okay,
that way
that's fair.
Yeah,
and Dream Scenario is great. This one hit so hard, and it's very like, it's not, I don't want to call it like a coming of age story, but it's like the evolution of a coming of age story is like a mid-20s I don't know what I'm doing with my life story, like that vibe of movie.
Yeah.
And so this feels like that. Like this is very much like a, just like a look inward on someone in their mid-20s who's just like just making the dumbest decisions. It's so fucking good, Sean. I hope you
love it. Absolutely.
It's so good.
I'm down.
But yeah,
I'll tell you when I watch it.
Those are my many Mostly Horror Recs for this week. Tell us if you've seen any of these movies. Did you watch Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, or the one movie where it's just Harley Quinn?
Birds of Prey.
I almost said Girls of Prey. Birds of Prey. Do you know what Landscape with Invisible Hand means? Because I didn't figure it out until the end of the movie. Tell me about it. Birth, Rebirth, did you watch it? Funny games? Nothing funny about those games. Sick of Myself? You just got to watch Sick of Myself. There's no joke there. You just got to watch that movie. Tell us about any of those if you've seen them. mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at mostlyhorrorpod. Our TikTok and our Twitter are at mostlyhorror. I'm everywhere as Steven is average. Sean's on all the socials at Hypocrite Inc. or hypocrite.inc. And that is all we got for you this week. We'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.